Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are going way back in time, but with like a super modern twist.
Sounds interesting.
We are going to be looking at how artificial intelligence is shaking up
Oh,
the
wow.
world of genealogy. Like family trees,
Mm-hmm.
but forget those like dusty old records.
Right.
We're talking AI crunching data to uncover family secrets.
Wow. It's amazing how AI is really taking genealogy far beyond what we used to think was possible.
It is.
Instead of like painstakingly searching through physical records, we can now analyze like massive amounts of data
Right.
to find connections that might have been missed before.
Exactly. And we've got like a real-life example to kind of guide us today.
Okay.
The work of Dr. Jose Talavera Falcon,
Okay.
who used AI to dive deep into his own family history,
Interesting.
the Talavera family.
Cool.
His blog posts are like a step-by-step guide to AI genealogy.
That's awesome.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'm kind of curious, why was using AI so important for his research? Like, what kind of roadblocks was he hitting with the traditional methods?
Well, he was hitting a wall, genealogically speaking.
Yeah.
He had traced his family back a certain amount, but like traditional methods just weren't really giving him the answers he was looking for.
Yeah.
He knew there were more connections to be made, more stories to be uncovered,
Right.
but like the sheer volume of data was just overwhelming.
I can imagine.
That's where AI came in. It gave him that power to analyze huge amounts of information,
Wow.
making connections that would have been impossible to find manually.
Okay, that makes sense. So it was like having a super-powered research assistant?
Exactly.
But what I don't get is, how do you even use AI for something like genealogy? I always thought AI was about like self-driving cars and things like that.
Well, it's definitely used for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But at its core, AI is about recognizing patterns and making predictions.
Okay.
And that's exactly what you need for genealogy.
Hmm.
You're trying to find patterns in names, dates, locations, all sorts of information to try to predict family relationships.
Right.
In Dr. Talavera Falcon's case, he was able to use a programming language called Python, which is super versatile to kind of sort through all of this historical data.
So Python was like the foundation of his digital toolbox.
Yes.
But I always thought programming languages were just for like building websites or apps, not tracing your ancestors.
Right, but Python is incredibly useful for any task that involves like analyzing data and making predictions. And within Python, there are specific libraries or sets of pre-built tools that make it even more powerful for genealogy.
Okay.
One of these libraries is Pandas, which is basically like a super organized spreadsheet.
So Pandas helped him wrangle all of that messy historical data into something manageable.
Yes.
I can definitely see how that would be important. Those old records could be a real headache to decipher.
Right.
But was Python enough to solve all of his genealogical mysteries?
Python and Pandas definitely got him a long way.
Okay.
But to really unlock the secrets hidden of his family's past,
Yeah.
he needed some heavier firepower.
Okay.
That's where R came in.
Okay.
It's a language specifically designed for statistical analysis, and it allowed him to really dig deep into the data and uncover those ha-ha moments.
So R was like the detective looking for clues and piecing together the evidence.
Exactly.
And was that when he started finding those like missing pieces of his family history?
Yes, R was crucial in making those connections. And within R, there's this package called Tidyverse that's basically like a data cleaning powerhouse.
Oh, wow.
Historical data is often messy and inconsistent.
Yeah.
Tidyverse helped him to kind of clean things up and organize the data so that he could really start to see those patterns emerge.
So Tidyverse was like his Marie Kondo bringing order to the chaos. I love that.
Exactly.
But data analysis can be kind of abstract, right?
It can be.
So how did Dr. Talavera Falcon actually visualize what he was finding?
Well, remember how we talked about R being great for statistical analysis?
Uh-huh.
It also excels at data visualization.
Oh, cool.
He used a package called Gplot2 to create graphs and charts that really brought his findings to life.
Okay, that makes sense. So he was able to see his family tree not just as a list of names and dates,
Right.
but as a visual story unfolding across time.
Exactly. And these visualizations weren't just pretty pictures.
Right.
They were really key to making sense of the complex relationships and patterns that he was uncovering.
I see.
For example, he could create a chart showing how the Talavera family migrated over generations, or a graph highlighting the frequency of certain names appearing in historical records.
Uh-huh.
These visualizations allowed him to see things in a whole new way.
That's so cool. It's like turning raw data into a family portrait,
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to wrap my head around how all these different tools work together.
Okay.
Did he use Python Pandas R and tidyverse for every single discovery?
Not necessarily. Sometimes he might have used just Python and pandas to kind of get a quick overview of the data.
Yeah.
Other times he might have gone all in with R and tidyverse for a deep dive analysis.
Okay.
It really just depended on the specific question he was trying to answer.
So it's like having different tools in his belt,
Yes,
and he could choose the right one for the job.
exactly.
I'm really starting to see how powerful this approach can be.
It is.
But didn't he also use something called NumPy? That one always sounds a bit intimidating to me.
NumPy is another Python library, and it's all about working with numbers.
Okay.
Think of it as like a math whiz that helps organize and manipulate numerical data in a way that the AI can easily understand.
Okay, so it was like the translator between the historical data and the AI.
Exactly.
That makes a lot more sense. But I'm curious, what kind of specific problem did NumPy help solve in Dr. Talavera Falcon's research? Did it lead to any, surprising discoveries?
Absolutely. One of the challenges he faced was dealing with inconsistent data formats.
Oh, yeah.
Historical records can be a real mess.
Yeah.
With different ways of recording names, dates, and locations.
Right.
NumPy helped to kind of standardize this information, making it easier for the AI to process and analyze.
Okay.
And in one instance, this led to a breakthrough. He was struggling to connect a specific individual to the Talavera family tree.
Uh-huh.
But after using NumPy to clean up the data, the connection became clear.
Wow.
It turned out that a slight variation in the spelling of a name had been throwing off the analysis.
So it was like NumPy was able to see through the clutter and find that missing muscle piece? That's incredible. But I imagine that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's like a whole world of AI tools out there for genealogy.
There definitely is. And we'll kind of dive into some of the more advanced tools that he used, like Scikit-learn and Spark, in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, cool.
These tools allowed him to take his research even further, uncovering patterns and making predictions with even greater accuracy. But before we move on,
Yeah. What were you going to say?
what really struck me about Dr. Talavera Falcon's approach was his willingness to experiment and to combine different tools and techniques.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't afraid to get creative and try new things, and that's what ultimately led him to those groundbreaking discoveries.
That's such a great point. It's like he was a digital detective, constantly searching for new clues and using all the tools at his disposal to crack the case of his family history.
Exactly.
And speaking of cracking the case, we'll come back to Dr. Talavera Falcon's AI-powered investigation and dive into some of his amazing results next time. Okay, so last time we were learning all about how Dr. Jose Talavera Falcon was using AI to explore his family history.
It's pretty fascinating stuff.
We talked about Python, Pandas, R, tidyverse, even NumPy. It's like a whole new language just for genealogy.
Yeah, it can seem that way.
But tools are one thing. What I really want to know is, what did he actually find? Like, were there any big breakthroughs?
Oh, absolutely. Remember how he was hitting those dead ends with the traditional research?
Yeah.
Well, AI helped him to break through those walls and uncover family connections that had been lost for centuries.
Wow.
One of the most exciting things he found was a whole branch of the Talavera family that had migrated to South America in the 18th century.
Right, wow.
There was barely any record of them in the usual European archives, but by analyzing things like shipping manifests and land records,
Uh-huh.
the AI was able to piece together their journey and connect them back to the main family line.
That's amazing. So it was like AI was filling in those blank pages in his family history book.
Exactly.
But wait, how did he know the AI was right? I mean, couldn't those connections have just been coincidences?
That's a great question. And, he was definitely cautious about jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
But remember, AI is all about recognizing patterns.
Right.
And in this case, the patterns were pretty compelling.
Okay.
The AI found multiple instances of matching names, dates, and even occupations across different data sets.
Wow.
And he was very meticulous about verifying the AI's findings with traditional historical sources.
Okay.
So, for example, he was able to find a family letter mentioning the South American branch, confirming what the AI had uncovered.
So it was like a partnership.
Yeah.
The AI pointed him in the right direction, and then he used his expertise to confirm the connections. That's really cool. But were there any times when the AI got things wrong?
There were definitely times where the AI presented potential connections that turned out to be false leads.
Oh, okay.
Remember how we talked about data quality being a challenge?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes the historical records themselves were inaccurate or incomplete,
Right.
which led the AI down the wrong path.
I see.
So, for example, there was one instance where the AI flagged two individuals with the same name and birth year as potentially being related.
Okay.
But upon closer inspection, he realized that they were actually two different people living in different parts of the country.
Ah, so even with AI, you still need that human touch to kind of interpret the results.
Yeah, exactly.
And make sure they make sense in the context of history. It's not just like a plug-and-play solution. But were there any other challenges he encountered?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles was dealing with the nuances of human behavior.
Okay.
AI is great at finding patterns, but sometimes those patterns don't tell the whole story.
Right.
For example, he was trying to trace a line of the family back to a specific village in Italy.
Okay.
The AI kept flagging individuals who had lived in that village as potential ancestors.
Uh-huh.
But it couldn't account for the fact that people often moved around for work or marriage even centuries ago.
So the AI was focusing on location,
Yes.
but it wasn't considering those more complex social dynamics that could explain why someone might be living in a certain place. It's like assuming everyone who lives in New York City is related.
Exactly. And that's where his expertise as a historian was crucial.
Yeah.
He could look at the AI suggestions, but then factor in things like migration patterns, social customs, even economic conditions to make a more informed judgment about whether a connection was likely.
Okay.
He had to train his historian's eye to look at the data through an AI-assisted lens, so to speak.
That makes so much sense. It's like he was the conductor,
Mm-hmm.
using the AI as an instrument, but ultimately shaping the final interpretation of the data. I've started to see how AI can be like a powerful tool for genealogy,
Yeah.
but it's not a replacement for human expertise. It's more like a collaboration.
I completely agree. And speaking of collaboration, Dr. Talavera Falcon wasn't just using AI in isolation.
Oh, really?
He was also actively engaging with other researchers in the genealogy community,
Cool.
sharing his findings and getting feedback on his methods.
Oh, interesting. So it wasn't just him and his computer against the world of historical data.
Right.
He was tapping into like a whole network of knowledge. Did that lead to any breakthroughs?
It definitely did. In one case, he was really stumped by a particular genealogical puzzle.
Uh-huh.
He had a set of DNA results that didn't seem to match up with any known relatives in his family tree.
Okay.
He shared his findings with an online genealogy forum, and another researcher who had been using AI to analyze similar DNA data chimed in with a suggestion.
Oh, wow.
Turned out there was a rare genetic marker that had been overlooked. And once they factored that in, the missing link in the family tree became clear.
So it's like crowdsourcing genealogy research. That's amazing. And it shows how AI is not just a solo endeavor. It can really foster collaboration and accelerate discovery within the whole field.
Absolutely. And, beyond just finding individual ancestors, he was able to use AI to gain a much deeper understanding of his family's story.
Okay.
He could see how their lives were shaped by historical events like wars, famines, and migrations.
Uh-huh.
He even found evidence of family members who had been involved in social or political movements, things he never would have known about without the power of AI to kind of connect the dots between seemingly unrelated data points.
That's so cool. It's like AI was revealing those hidden chapters in his family's story. But I have to ask, were there any downsides to using AI for genealogy? Did he ever feel like it was taking away from the fun of traditional research? Or feel overwhelmed by all the technology?
Yeah, those are great questions and ones that he actually addresses in his blog posts. He definitely acknowledges that there's a learning curve when it comes to using AI, and it can be daunting at first,
Right.
but he also emphasizes that there are a lot of resources available for beginners,
Okay.
like online tutorials and workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, he feels like the benefits far outweigh the challenges.
Okay.
He says that AI has not only made his research more efficient, but it's also opened up whole new avenues of inquiry that he never would have considered before.
So it's like AI has supercharged his passion for genealogy, given him new tools and perspectives to explore his family history in ways he never imagined. That's really inspiring. But what about those who are like hesitant to embrace AI? What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's important to remember that AI is just a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to replace traditional genealogy research, but to enhance it.
Right.
And it's not an all or nothing proposition.
Yeah.
You can start small, maybe try using a simple AI-powered tool to help organize your family tree or search for records online.
Okay.
You don't have to become a coding expert overnight. The key is to just be open to exploring new possibilities
Yeah.
and to see how AI can help you unlock those family secrets that have been hiding in plain sight.
That's such a great point. It's about finding what works best for you and your research goals. And honestly, after hearing about all the amazing things Dr. Talavera Falcon has accomplished, I'm feeling pretty inspired to give it a try myself. But before I go off and start building my own AI-powered family tree, let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore the broader implications of AI for genealogy and for understanding history itself. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into AI and genealogy.
It's been a pretty amazing journey so far.
It has. But you know what I'm really curious about?
What's that?
What happens when we zoom out from those individual family trees?
Okay.
Can AI tell us anything about history on like a larger scale?
That's a great question, and it's something that researchers are really starting to explore.
Okay, so spill the tea. What kind of big picture insights can AI give us about the past?
Well, imagine taking all those individual family trees we've been talking about
Uh-huh.
and kind of weaving them together into this massive tapestry.
Whoa, like a giant interconnected family tree of humanity.
Exactly. And with AI's ability to analyze these huge amounts of data,
Yeah.
we can start to see patterns and trends that would be impossible to spot with the human eye alone.
Okay, I'm picturing something like those visualizations of global air traffic, but instead of planes, it's families migrating over centuries. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
That's a great analogy. We could track migration patterns over generations,
Mm-hmm.
see how different groups interacted,
Uh-huh.
and even how ideas and cultural practices spread across continents.
So it's like seeing history unfold in fast forward, but with a level of detail that we've never had before.
Exactly. And it's not just about migration patterns.
Okay.
We could also use AI to analyze historical records like census data, land deeds, even court
All right.
documents, to understand things like social mobility, economic trends, and the impact of major events like wars or natural disasters.
Wow, it's like having a time machine powered by data.
It really is.
But would this kind of analysis really change our understanding of history? I mean, don't we already have historians studying these things?
We do, but AI can offer new perspectives and uncover hidden connections that traditional historical research might miss.
Give me an example.
Okay, let's say historians are trying to understand the impact of the Industrial Revolution on family structures.
Like how people move from rural areas to cities for factory jobs.
Exactly. AI could analyze census data from that period to track those movements, but it could also dig deeper,
Okay.
looking at things like marriage records, birth records, even death records to see how those shifts impacted things like family size, life expectancy, and even social mobility across generations.
So instead of just knowing that people moved to cities, we could actually see how their lives and the lives of their children and grandchildren were affected. That's incredible. But isn't there a risk of AI just confirming what we already know about history? Or even worse, perpetuating existing biases?
That's definitely a valid concern,
Yeah.
and it's something that researchers are very mindful of.
So how do we make sure that AI is used responsibly when studying the past?
Well, for one thing, it's important to remember that AI is a tool.
Right.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but about the people who are using it, the
Exactly.
questions they're asking.
Exactly. We need historians and data scientists working together to ensure that the data being analyzed is accurate and representative,
Uh-huh.
that the algorithms being used are free from bias,
Okay.
and that the results are interpreted in a thoughtful and nuanced way.
It sounds like a real team effort.
It is, and the exciting thing is that this collaboration between historians and data scientists is already happening.
That's great.
There are projects underway all over the world using AI to explore everything from the transatlantic slave trade to the spread of ancient languages.
Wow, it feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
We definitely are, and I think this is just the beginning of a really exciting new era for historical research. AI has the potential to transform the way we understand the past, not just for academics, but for everyone.
You know, it's funny. We started this deep dive talking about individual family trees, but now we're talking about the whole history of humanity.
That's the beauty of it. AI allows us to connect those personal stories to these larger historical narratives and to see ourselves as part of something much bigger.
And I think that's a really powerful thing. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I want them to remember that the past is not just a collection of dates and names. It's a living, breathing story that's still unfolding today. And AI is giving us new tools to explore that story and to find our place within it.
Beautifully said. It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of AI and genealogy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to explore your own family history and the fascinating ways that AI is shaping our understanding of the past. Until next time, keep on learning.